Go live. All right, and we are live. Hello, everyone. So here, I'm just gonna focus me for a second. Hi. So this is another pairing thing. I did sort of this where some Tejas taught me. I think I did that yesterday or 2 days ago. And it was great. I was really happy with that. And so yesterday, MPJ, what is the fun function guy, whatever his name is. He's great. What is his name?
Matthias.
Yes, Matthias. So he's a great person, and he was complaining about React Testing Library and struggling with the fact that it renders the entire tree. And so if you have a component that makes a network request, then you have to deal with that, even though that component has nothing to do with the specific thing you're trying to test. And I can empathize with that problem. And so I was explaining to him that if you use MSW to handle those network requests, and you just have that set up along the side of your test, then you don't need to worry about it. And I decided, like, I teach this in Epic React. Like, this is a thing that people are going to learn in Epic React. But I decided I thought it would be useful to show somebody how to do this in a real world setting, like in an actual application that's shipped to production. So this morning I just tweeted out an invitation, shared it here on the Discord, and Heinrich was kind enough to offer his project as a sacrifice to this endeavor, and hopefully it goes super well. Before we get started on that, though, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, that's totally cool. Feel free to watch on that. But if you want to participate, then you can come to the KCD Discord by going to kcd.im/discord, and that will let you in, and you can comment and stuff, and we'll have chats and stuff. It'll be great. All right, so Heinrich, do you want to just, before we get started, introduce yourself and the app that we're going to be working with really quick?
Yes, so hi everyone. My name is Heinrich. I'm from Cape Town, South Africa. And this app is called Intelligent Routing. It was basically our startup from around 5 years ago that we tried to get going. It didn't take off as much as we had hoped. So we still have a few paying customers, but I'm back working for AWS. So this is kind of running in the background. And so we have this available for opportunities. And an example is an opportunity like this where we can, do these type of things. So I'm thinking of just having a quick explain what's going on. Run through the interface, and you can then also, we can decide on which part would make sense most to jump into.
Yeah, that makes good sense to me. And you mentioned that you had a idea in mind for what you wanted to work on for this. So give us a quick run through of what we're going to be working on.
Okay, so I'm just going to go through the sign-up process. That would be one option if we need something that is a bit simpler. I was thinking about the option that I proposed to you on the Discord channel. I'm not sure how well that will work because I don't have very good data. The only data that I have is from real clients, and I wouldn't want to expose too much of that in a live stream.
Sure.
But to give you an idea, just an overview for the other people, this is a vehicle route optimization app. So if you have 5 vehicles and you need to deliver 200 places tomorrow, what is the best way to do it? So it's the traveling salesman problem, but for multiple vehicles. So in this case, this is running locally. I've set it up. Just gonna add some data. So these are restaurants here in Cape Town. I'll save those. What I thought we could do is if you know we have all these addresses and you create a new route from that, this is whether it is at the moment in an arbitrary order. If you optimize that, and let me clear the network calls down here. This would be one option, I think. So we have a call to calculate solution, and it comes back with an optimized route.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
If we want something, a bit more advanced, we could take these and the multi-route planning, where we have some, you can configure capacities. Let's just set a limit of 5 stops per vehicle. At a depot. And this one would be quite interesting because it's asynchronous, so it sends the problem to the server, and then it starts polling. So I'm not 100% sure how one would do that. But in this case, because it now has constraints, it has to split it across multiple vehicles, and you can see that it shows the 5 vehicles to the route. Yeah, so that is overview. I do have a kind of a sign-up test, which I tried to use React testing library, and this one mocks out or spies on on a promise level on fetch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know what you think. The one that I proposed to you, I can just quickly show you. This is a client of ours that agreed that we can use their account for some demos. Okay, and this would be the live view, and you have those are all the vehicles that are on the road, and you would see the planned route, and it's then also tracking and seeing which of the planned destinations were already completed. So that is kind of this view, and I initially thought this would be a good one to do because it has quite a few API calls going on. But yeah, I think it will be a bit difficult doing it with the client's data, even though they agreed to use it for demos.
Yeah. So typically I like the first step that I would take is I would write a function that could generate that data, with the faker.js. And so that
Okay.
if it's a large amount of data or kind of complicated to make it actually like realistic, then that might take some time. So I don't think we have time to do that, but that's definitely something to look into if you want to get confidence in that area. And the nice thing about that is you could then generate that data and send it through MSW to as your responses and stuff, which is cool. But yeah, I think if I were given that I'm coming into this app and we're going to add something new, it's always easiest to add something new to like something as simple as possible. And so maybe the sign in or sign up process might be a good place to start.
Okay.
Especially since you already have some fake data that we could then use, and you already also have a test, which makes things nice too. So we can really focus on the MSW part of this, which would be great.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
Okay, very good. So let's take that just spy on call with the global fetch. Let's remove all of like that entire thing. Don't delete it though. Just set it off to the side. Put it in a comment somewhere because we'll use that data later. But let's get rid of that out of the test. And then when you finish that, let's run the test and just scope it down to this sign up test.
That is hard. So we want to just do the sign up.
Yep. Perfect. Okay, so of course this is going to fail because it's going to try and make an actual network request, which I'm guessing is going to fail unless that service happens to be up and able to respond quickly and stuff. But in any case, we don't actually want to make this network request, right? So we're going to want to bring in Msw to intercept the network request. So actually, sorry, I told you to run that test. Let's go ahead and stop that test so we can get this installed, and then we'll restart those tests. Oh yeah, and we'll fix that too. So yeah, just run npm install msw.
MSW.
Yep. So Msw originally was intended as a mock service worker. That's what it stands for. But and I use it for that in my app, the Bookshelf app, which I'll grab a link to and share that in the notes here. So you can look at this as a reference implementation sometime if you like. And that's what Bookshelf is built on top of for its backend is Msw serving all of these mock responses. And like the whole thing, that in fact, if you go to the deployed version of the Bookshelf app, this whole thing is built on top of Msw, which is not typically how you would use Msw. Normally, you just use it in development. And so for us, you could definitely use Msw for your development of the app and have it running in the browser and everything. And actually, there are some really great benefits to doing this when we get to, or like once you've gotten the server spec'd out. But we're going to start out with the tests and using it just for the tests. And that was a feature that was added to Msw to have it work in Node and intercept these requests. And as it happens, Artem, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it, if I need to have a hard T, is it Artem or is it okay if I say Artem? Hopefully it's okay.
It sounds both way pretty good.
Okay. So Artem is here and he actually wrote the Msw. He's the author. So he can correct anything I get wrong. Yeah, super happy with Msw. Glad that Artem added the ability to run this server side. And I will get the docs for doing that, and I'll also grab a link to where I do that in the Bookshelf app, and I'll put that in our Kent Live chat over here. So if I go right here, kind of where it all starts. You don't have to pull those up, Heinrich, if you don't want to. I'll tell you what to do as we get through some of this stuff.
Okay.
And it looks like that's going to take a second to install. So I'm going to share my screen and I'll just show you around some stuff while that is happening. Thankfully, just this week, Discord added the ability for multiple people to live stream at once, which I think is pretty rad. So yeah, let me give you a quick tour of how Msw works and then we'll apply it to your app. So like I said, this is the Bookshelf app. It's great. I use it for Epic React, which is going to be released in a matter of, I think I'm almost comfortable saying a matter of weeks. But if we take a look at this app, this is actually also a Create React app application, but Msw works with anything. And here in our source index is where everything gets started. And then we have our bootstrap file that just like imports a bunch of CSS and other things that we want to have running by the time we actually render our app. And so this test server is one of those things that we want to have. And this is our Msw. This starts up our Msw server. Now, I've got a couple of if statements in here. The first, and actually let me bump this font size up. just so everybody can see clearly. The first is, if we're in development, then I want to run the dev server. If we're in test, then I want to run the test server. That's what we're going to be writing for you. And otherwise, you're in production, presumably, and so you wouldn't actually run any server except for your actual backend that you'll really be hitting. So you won't be intercepting any requests. In my case, the Bookshelf app actually does not have a backend, and so we require the dev server here. So yeah, we're going to be focusing on this test server. So I'm going to dive into that. And this is all it takes for this, just like for the general setting up an MSW server here. So here you're going to import msw/node. You'll grab the setup server export from that. And then we'll take a look at these server handlers here in a second. This is something that I wrote that are specific handlers. You can think of it almost as express middleware type thing. And those are the handlers for when requests are made. And then you pass those along as arguments to the setup server, and that'll give you back a server. And there's no, actually, incidentally, there's nothing asynchronous about this. Once you call that function, every network request that's being made will be intercepted by MSW. And if you have a handler for the request, then it will, MSW will call your handler instead of making the network call. If you don't, then an actual network call will be made. And there's a way to get a warning for those types of situations, because in our tests, we probably don't want to make any actual network calls. I haven't added that to the Bookshelf app, so I can't show you how that configuration looks there. But I'll show you that later when we get to this point. So yeah, that's how you get a server started. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? It looks like a couple people in the chat are saying that this is things are looking a little buggy. We've got some tearing probably, which is super annoying. So I'm gonna stop streaming and start streaming again, and we'll see if that makes any difference. And anybody here work for Discord? You can let them know that this happens a lot. Okay, cool. So Heinrich, really quick, have you finished installing, or is it still? Yeah, it's still going. Okay, so we'll keep on coming with. I'll show you the server handlers.
Yeah, it's still going. I don't know.
Yeah, hopefully it finishes by the time I'm done walking through all this stuff. Okay, so in the server handlers, I'm importing the REST export from MSW, and that's how I create these different server handlers. We'll see that in a second. I also have this match thing. We probably won't need to worry about that. And then I have a couple of databases. So this is the books database, users database, and the list items database. That I think we probably won't really need to get to for our first introduction of MSW into your app. But basically what this is an in-memory database for each of these items. And so it exposes, oh, that is not going to link properly for me. So if we go up here, test data, users. So it's an in-memory, it's persisted in local storage database that exposes all the typical functions that you would have for this type of database. So authenticate, create, read, update, remove, delete, and then a reset that would just clear out the database. So the actual implementation itself is probably fine, but the implementation itself doesn't matter all that much. But the ability to, sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. Sorry, that's fine. But yeah, feel free to jump on the YouTube. Sorry that Discord is struggling with some of this. Yeah, so anyway, I don't think that we'll need to get into this so much for your stuff. But this is the next level as you're mocking out your whole backend, is to have some sort of in-memory database that you can interact with to make things more realistic. It's actually A lot of people hear that and they're like, so wait, I have to re-implement my entire backend twice? That sounds like a lot of work that I don't want to do. It's actually not quite like that at all, because you don't have to worry about lots of the things you typically have to worry about with a real backend. So it's kind of like a backend light. So yeah, then here's our list of handlers. We use this REST export from MSW to make different handlers. And I just make one for every network request that I typically am going to expect. And so I have a post here for login and register. We have a get, and yeah, just like all the network requests that my app makes live in here as server handlers. And this is basically the HTTP method we expect to handle, and then the URL that we're handling it on, and then an async function that accepts the request, response, and a special context object that we use to generate what our response should be. Then we do whatever we need to based on the request, and then we call the response function with some special helper functions that the context exposes to us. Normally, it's just going to be context JSON to respond to that JSON request. So that's all that is to it. How are things looking here? Still installing. So we can go ahead and get things running while we wait for the install to finish. I guess I should have asked you to get this installed before we met up. I didn't realize that it was going to be this slow. So we'll see how this goes. But go ahead and go back.
I'm not sure what's happening.
It could be the Discord live stream is just eating your internet or something, which would make sense. So it's fine. We can code as if it's been installed, and hopefully it'll get installed before we have to end this. But yeah, go up to the very top of your file and let's import MSW.
Okay.
And you'll want to import the REST export from MSW. So it'll be import REST from MSW.
REST.
Great. And then on the next line, you'll want to import setup server from MSW/node.
Sorry.
MSW/node. And then the import is setup server. Perfect.
And I'm importing what from?
No, that's it. What you've got there is perfect. So now, probably just below the just mock line, let's add a const server equals setup server, and then you'll call that. And here's where we're going to be passing our server handlers. Now we need to determine what our server handlers are going to be. So let me come over here to our setup server, and when we go to, I need to figure out how to tell MSW to warn when there are missing requests or whatever. I think it's this listen API right here, but let me find that. Or Artem, can you tell me, is it just when we call listen?
Yep, it's in listen, and I also shared the link to the docs in the chat.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Yeah. So Heinrich, if you want to just go to that link so that you can get the code for this server listen call, you will want to do it within a before each and after each for the cleanup. So let's see, where's the... Yeah, I'll paste the code for this. And actually, I'm going to make my own favorite alteration to this.
Okay, let me find the...
I also gave you some code that you can grab for getting the server started. And in fact, it's that listen call that that takes this argument. So I can just give that to you as well. There you go. So if you check out the chat, the Kent live chat, then I've got that code for you to use right there. And then I can explain it once you get that.
Okay, the after each is the one.
Yeah, yep. So sorry, I made a small change, and that was,
okay.
Yep, you got it. Perfect. Cool. Okay. So let me just explain this really quick. So it's not just a copy paste thing here. So the before all just says before all of the tests run, we need to do this stuff. And you may know this, but the people who are watching may not. So I'll belabor this a little bit. So yeah, before all the tests are run, we want to do this thing. And this thing that we want to do is start listening so that we intercept requests. I think earlier I said once you call setup server, that starts intercepting the request. That was incorrect. It's when we call listen is when that happens. So we call listen on the server to before the tests start so that all of the requests are going to be intercepted. And then we've configured it to say if there are any requests that don't have handlers, then give me a warning, and that'll warn you in the console, which ends up working out quite nicely for our test, so that we can just run the test, doing all the interactions that we want it to, and MSW will tell us, hey, you're not mocking out this request. And so we just say, okay, I'll take that under advisement, and I'll start mocking that now. So that'll make things quite easy. After all the tests are done, then we'll close the server so we're no longer intercepting network requests. It's unlikely that our tests will be making network requests after our tests are done, but it is typically a good idea to clean yourself up after you perform side effects, just in case something comes up. You wouldn't want MSW to handle other network requests of unrelated things. And then we have our after each, where we say reset handlers, and that's my bad right there. There's a typo. It's not just reset handlers, but it should be server.resetHandlers, because Just knows nothing about this stuff. So sorry for giving you that typo. But yeah, this basically says when we call setup server on line 13, we're saying here are all of my handlers, which we're about to write here in a second. But sometimes you're going to be adding additional handlers for one-off tests. A great example of this is if you wanted to test what happens when there's a network error for a specific request, then you could add an additional handler after the fact within the test and say, okay, when we make this request to this endpoint, I actually want to fail with a 500 or something. And so you can do that within the test, and then this will clean up any of those types of handlers that you add later. So I like to just include that by default. Any questions about that? Does that all make sense, what we've got here so far? Henrik, are you still there?
Yep, makes sense to me.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. So let's.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you all right. Okay, so I was kind of hoping that we'd have MSW installed by now, so we could just run the test and MSW would tell us what we're missing. But since we can't, that's fine, because you do still have the app running. Is that right? Is it still working?
Yeah, but everything is super slow. But it is still running.
Ah, rats. Okay. Well, this might be a bit of a dead end until that gets finished installing, because now we have no way of knowing what network requests are going to be made, unless you just happen to know all the network requests that are made in this case. And actually, you sort of do, right? Because you have the mocks already. We could just look at that and see what... Is it just a single network request that you were having to mock? Do you know what the URL for that was? Actually,
yeah, I think it was only a single request.
And it's a post request, I'm guessing, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, that's all right. We can deal with it when we actually start running stuff. So let's just assume it's a post request.
Yes.
And we'll go to our setup server here, and within those parentheses, you're going to say rest.post, and actually it'll just be a single argument. It doesn't need to be an array here. With setup server, it accepts any number of arguments, and it grabs all of those. So yeah, so we'll say rest post, and then the first argument's the URL, so you can just put like /todo or something, and then the second argument is going to be your async function. And it's going to accept a request, response, and a context. And I just do rec, res, and ctx. Cool. And now, if we wanted to just go with parity of what you have, then here we could, and that's what we're going to go for now. Here what you're going to do is return res, and res is a function that you'll call.
Okay.
And then you'll call that with ctx.json, and that's another function that you'll call. And then go to your what you'd copied before. And everything inside of that promise resolve can go into that context JSON. So before anybody starts complaining about, like, we just literally added an abstraction and didn't do anything useful here, because I imagine there are some people in the YouTube comments just waiting to say that. We actually are adding a lot of value here, because what was there before was just a generic, for the fetch call that's made, let's return this object that has a status of 200 and a JSON function that it returns a promise that resolves to this stuff. But this is going to make sure that not only is the request that is made returning or getting this return value, but also you're verifying that it was made to the proper URL, it had the proper HTTP method on it, and it also had the it's handling the response properly. You don't have to manufacture your own fetch response object. MSW is going to handle doing that properly for you. So there's a lot of benefit to this type of an approach here. So yeah, hopefully this is good to go here in just a sec. Out of curiosity, what version of Node are you running right now?
I'm not sure. So this is my laptop at home, and
okay.
yeah.
I thought I saw somewhere that said it was.
12.
I thought I saw somewhere that said it was version 4 or something. Okay, 12. Whew. Good. Okay, great. I must have been a different 4 or something. Okay, so it looks like there's just some syntax error somewhere in here. So once we have this working, I think that next line can probably be deleted. I think. Maybe. Okay, so I think we just need a closing parentheses and remove that comma. Maybe. Let's remove those two parentheses you just added and add one on line 86. I think that's what we're missing. There we go. I think that's right. Maybe not. No, I don't think that's right.
Oh.
Okay, so that is good. Then we have a closing curly. I think we need one more closing parentheses on 87.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, it worked. Great. Okay, good. So let's take a look at the install output and see how we're doing there. Good news. All right. Thousands of vulnerabilities. I'm sure everything's fine. Oh, NPM is my favorite. You're not alone. Don't worry. Don't feel bad. Everybody has exactly this problem. Okay. So now let's go ahead and let's try and get our test running and see if oh, you've got it going. Good. Might have to restart Jest actually with all of these changes. I think the reason that took so long is because you ran npm install instead of yarn add. I didn't realize you were using yarn, and so it had to reinstall like everything. And this also might mean that things are kind of messed up. Yeah, because mixing npm and yarn is bad. So, dang it. Let's don't do that yet. Let's make sure you delete your package lock that was probably just generated.
Okay.
Yeah, and then delete the known modules directory too. Let's just totally blow it away since you want to RF on that. There you go. And now let's run yarn, and let's just hope that yarn is as fast as they seem to claim they are. Yeah, now I gotta think of what we're gonna do while we wait for yarn to go, because that will take a moment. It's just taking a second to remove those node modules. That I have a alias on my computer that's called flash npm that removes node modules and runs npm install because I do it so often. It's so annoying. I don't trust any package managers. They never work. Actually, it not only removes the node modules, it also destroys the package lock too because it's the worst. Yarn was the same way. I had a flush yarn when I was using yarn too. It's just such a racket.
So have you switched back to npm?
Yeah, I mostly because I am full-time teacher, and npm is the thing that like everybody uses or like has installed by default. And so if I want somebody to come to my workshop, I don't want to tell them that like they have to install a whole bunch of stuff. I just want them to say, like, I want to say, hey, I expect you to have Node installed. Like we're using Node. But I don't want them to also expect that they have a bunch of additional things installed. So I'm on npm for everything now. there we go. Okay. So let's get yarn installing. And then let me think. So when you sign up, and like in the future, if we had the time to take this further, which we won't, but to continue on from here, what I would suggest is creating a user database, which would just be an object in memory, that will take the information that we get from the sign-up form and stick it into that database, so that when somebody makes a call that should be authenticated, you can check into that database for that user to make sure that that user account exists. So like presumably they're going to be giving you some sort of token or something. What's the authentication for this app? Like how does the authentication work?
So it's a Flask, a Python Flask. So it's cookies.
Mm-hmm. So is it? I've never used Python
Is that what you're
Flask.
asking?
Does that use JWTs? Or how do you verify that a user is authenticated? Sorry,
No,
how do you
it
make
doesn't.
authenticated requests? Do you send the bearer token in the authorization header?
So it is as part of the cookie. There's a signed string.
Oh,
Or
I see.
signed, yeah.
Okay, so this uses sessions and cookies for authentication.
It has a, from the authentication side, it generates a token, and that token is put into, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So with MSW, I'm assuming that Flask will send you or will set that cookie when the sign up endpoint is hit. And so that's something that you could do within MSW as well, is they have a cookies API, which I'm sure we could find here in the docs. Yep, there it is. And so you could set the same type of cookie that would be set by Flask. And then whenever they make authenticated requests, you can look in that cookie and make sure that it is correct. And it doesn't have to be like, satisfy all of the requirements that a cookie typically should satisfy, or like the security, like the OWASP security recommendations, because these are just for tests and that's implementation details of the back end. But you can make your front end assume that everything is working in that way. And so it should be making authenticated requests. And so once you have that set up, then any request that your front end is going to make will it will actually make that request. It should be authenticated, and if it's not, then your test will fail because you have your mock backend handling those types of situations. And if stuff isn't installed, or if the cookie isn't set up properly, or like the request is missing that cookie or something like that, then you'll get a failing test, which gives you confidence in your authentication system on the front end, which is great. So that's another benefit to this, and this is something that we could add to this sign up server handler if we had more time, and something that maybe if you want to dive into that, you could do that later. And again, the Bookshelf app it serves as a great reference implementation too, if you want to dive into how that works in the Bookshelf app. What's cool about the Bookshelf app is that because I use local storage to persist this, I can use these same server handlers in the as I'm developing my app, and all of these like users and the users' data and everything is going to be persisted between refreshes. And so I can use my app completely offline, Yeah, it's awesome once you have all this set up. And what that means too is that an integration test becomes like silly easy to set up and get running. So having this configured and stuff is really nice. It just is a matter of getting things installed. And it looks like we are on step 4 of 4, so
Yeah.
things are looking.
Do you have any recommendations how to make sure that your mocks are kept in sync with what you?
Yeah, that's a good one. So when I was at PayPal, I had one of my coworkers, Ethan, was working on a recorder.
There's a bit of lag going on.
Oh, sorry. Let me know if you can't hear me. So when I was at PayPal, my one of my coworkers worked on a recorder where he could pull up the app and his script would just keep track of every network request that was made, and it would save those network requests to JSON files. And so then we tied that in with some automation so that we could just say, okay, I want you to record the requests for all of the responses for all of these requests. And that would get saved into JSON files, which we would then use in our tests. It worked. He was only starting to do it, so I didn't stick around for long enough to see how that ended up working, but my assumption was that it would work great. So that's, if that was a need that I had, then that would be the approach I would take. Another approach, and the thing that I really like, is generating the data. There are various niceties to doing that data generation instead. And it looks like your test is running a bunch of other stuff. Yeah, so there are a couple of things that you could do, especially if you have typings. I noticed you have Flow in this project, but if you had Flow or TypeScript, then you could share the typings from your backend to your front end, which hopefully you're doing. I guess since you're Flask, maybe it's a little unique there. But in any case, you probably have type definitions for your backend services. And so then you could have those same type definitions for the functions that are generating your data, in which case you would be able to be notified anytime things fall out of sync. So, great. This is good. This is a good sign. So we no longer have the spy, and so we can delete that from your test. And then, yeah, let's take a look at. Yeah, it looks like you've got 2 tests, so we can. Let's just deal with the first one. Or I guess the one that's failing.
So I guess the one that's failing is.
Yeah, if you go to line 257, that's the line that's failing here. Very good. Almost there. Yep. So just remove both of those because you no longer are spying on anything, which means that you no longer need that snapshot, which is awesome. You're getting all the same confidence that the request is being made properly by having MSW there. So that's great. I noticed also you're getting a warning because on line 248, you're using the wait utility, which has been deprecated, in favor of the wait for utility. So if you just do a find replace on await wait, and then change that for await wait for, then that should take care of that. Maybe await wait open parentheses. There you go. Very good. And then you'll need to import that at the top. You got it. And then wait for element has actually also been deprecated in favor of wait for, so you can just delete that and just replace it with wait for.
Just like that?
Yep.
Okay.
Sweet. So that should remove a couple of those warnings that you're getting, but not all of them, because it looks like you've got some component will mount and stuff like that warnings. But let's take a look at what we've got here for our test output. It looked like the test was actually passing, which honestly, I was expecting it to fail. We'll see for sure. So let's just scroll past these warnings here. And it is failing. Oh, right, because we've got wait for element still hanging around. So let's get rid of that. All right, cross your fingers. Let's scroll past these warnings. I'm pretty sure it's passing. Woohoo! And that snapshot's obsolete, so you can ditch that thing. So this is actually awesome. And I wonder if we could actually get that other test to stop mocking, or what it would take for the other test to stop mocking fetch. So what is the difference between both of these two tests?
The one on sign up for the one sets a team name, and the other just uses the default team name.
Got it. Okay, so how do these things compare in the response, as well as the request, I guess?
I'm not too sure. Let me see. Custom.
I wonder.
So it's also, it is my PC is really struggling, so it's quite slow.
Yeah, that's all right. And I can relate to how frustrating it is when the computer slows down when you're streaming. I wonder if we just comment out that spy call, or that just spy on call. If we comment that whole thing out and see what breaks, then maybe we'll get an idea. And actually, this is a pretty common problem, and I've written a blog post about this if anybody wants to take a look at this later, where you have some fake data that you've duplicated, or just tests that are quite long. And I've written about how to avoid this problem in a blog post called AHA Testing that people can take a look at sometime. Yeah, I can help with these kinds of things. And we gotta wrap things up here in just a second.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna get a warning right there, MSW warning. We're making a post to API v1 users, and another post to log out, and I'm actually, part of me is wondering if the logout post request is getting made because that user's request failed. So that would be the first one to take a look at. Unfortunately, we won't be able to keep going and dive into getting this one working, but hopefully you have enough of an idea of what to do next. So, well, basically what you need to do from this point is go to that your server handlers, and you'd identify in that server handler whether this is going to be with a default team name or a custom team name and respond accordingly. And then let me just, there we go. And then from there, you can handle any additional requests that are made. It looked like there was an API v1 users request that was made. So you'll add an additional handler for that. And just keep on adding handlers until you've got them all handled. And then the next step beyond that would be to have some sort of in-memory database to keep track of the users so that when they make additional requests, you can verify that it's coming from the right user, it's authenticated and everything. So you really are kind of re-implementing your backend in some small way. But like if you look at my server handlers, that backend is very clearly light, I guess is the right word. So it's not a ton of work, and it saves you an enormous amount of work and effort in the process. So anyway, hopefully that was interesting and helpful in some small way to folks.
Yeah, thank you very much. That it was useful. Yeah, apologies for the slow install and everything.
It happens, you know. We all feel the pain of slow installs. One last thing that I'm going to share here for people is this blog post, Stop Mocking Fetch, where I go into MSW a little bit as well and talk about kind of the justification for some of the things that we did, so people can feel free to dive into that. And yeah, any questions from anybody before we wrap this up? Okay, great. Well, thanks so much. This was a good time, and we'll see you around the internet. Thanks so much, Henrik. That was fun.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it.
Okay, see y'all later.
Bye.